Hello, and welcome to episode 1 of FPL Journey to 10K. Hello, Matt.
Hey Dave, hey guys, how are things? You good?
Not too bad. We've been talking about this for a little while, so it's good to finally get it up and running. And hopefully you're feeling as nervous as I am for episode 1, but we'll be old hats come the end of the season, I imagine.
I believe in us. We've got
Yeah.
it.
But just for you, the listener, thank you for joining us. This idea all stemmed from basically I've been playing fantasy football for about 12 years now. And amongst my friends group, I'm good, but when it comes to the actual real world, it's getting to that next level is really what I want to achieve. So, over the last 12 years, I've finished in maybe the top 50,000 two times, but my average is about 100,000 mark. Um, and I want to get the dream, the top 10,000 finish. So I was speaking to Matt here, and I'll come on to blow Matt's horn and a little bit in a second. But speaking to Matt about trying to take that journey, how do I go from finishing in the top 100,000 to finishing in the top 10,000? Hence FPL journey to 10k. And I plan on doing that in two ways. So firstly, going to use the professional tools that are available. So all those good things, expected goals, expected points, expected assists. Don't forget the defenders, expected clean sheets, and all of that good stuff. But I've also got the guidance, the advice, and the mentorship from one of the best players in the world who has agreed to join me. So before you introduce yourself, Matt, I'll just read off some of your accolades. So you've been playing FPL for 8 seasons. Over that time, your average finish is 6,500. You're at number 10 in the Fantasy Football Scout Hall of Fame. You're number 2 all-time Premier FPL tools ranking. And in the FPL research, which looks at the top 10 seasons worth of data, you are number 5 in the world. I mean, I don't know what more of an introduction I can give you, mate. You are the fifth best player in the world at this game, and you've agreed to be my mentor. So thank you for that.
Now, what can I say to that? I feel incredibly awkward. Look at me blushing here, but no, like I'm just a guy who kind of loves kind of ball. I think we've had this discussion a few times, and I reckon with sensible play, you don't have to do anything exceptional. I think with sensible play, you can put yourself in a real good chance to get that kind of top 10k finish. Really, like there's a load of stats if you kind of read the fixtures and whatnot. I think you can get there really. So there's nothing exceptional, special with my way of playing. It's just kind of like just being consistent, essentially. But you kind of missed out in that intro, like good guy as well, right? That's the
Good
main
guy, of course.
main
Of
title I
course.
want.
Good guy. Number 4 for good guy, not number 5. So you're one ahead. You're one ahead on the good guy side. But yeah, you've seen some of my maniac moves in a season. I remember last season captain and Sterling for the double game week against City and somebody else, and he got substituted off after 8 minutes. So maybe you can talk me out of things like that for this season.
Always chasing that differential, weren't you? Always chasing it.
But yeah, for episode, you'll see some of my maniac moves when you see my team probably on the next episode, although we might talk about a few on this one. But I thought with a week to go until we kick off, nearly back again, I just thought it'd be good to dive into the thoughts of, as I've pointed out, and it's in the title, a top 5 manager in the world. I'll keep telling you that, McCorbs. But just to get your thought when you're designing and planning for your first game week, what are your thoughts? What do you think about? And I'm going to throw some questions at you, if that's okay.
Love it. Hit me with it.
Hit you with it. So first thing for me is price points. Now, I bring this up first because I have been doing this a lot this season. It's a very selfish reason to bring it up first. But I've been trying to get that 5.5 million defender in, or I've been trying to get that 8 million striker in just for flexibility of move. So when it comes to price points, what's your thoughts?
Shall I be blunt?
Be blunt. That's what I need.
I kind of don't really care when I'm setting up my team for game week 1. And I'll add a caveat. Like I've had last 2 seasons, I've had some good starts. Like I've been like in first 5 game weeks being in like the top 100k, which is a great position. But historically, I've never had a fast start, right? So that's my health warning that this advice isn't necessarily the best for that like fast start. But yeah, price points for me, I don't really give it too much consideration when I'm setting up my game week one team. I think some of the things with price that I do like, so there's those other things that take precedent with, but some of the things I do like with price is I like keeping my bench pretty bare, right? So like sometimes I think there might be a temptation to like load it up with some kind of like big players throughout, so you've got that strength in depth, and then you can kind of rotate your team if there's injuries. You're kind of covered. I always feel like loading my first 11 with kind of like the best players, highly priced kind of players more often than not, and then keeping my bench pretty bare is kind of like a good approach, just because there's going to be a transfer that comes down the line. You're just going to be frustrated that you've got money on your bench, right? If you saved a little money, it'd be easier to make that move. Also, like FPL, when you're taking it seriously, like both you and I do, right? You get pretty pissed off, right, when things go wrong. So one of the things that can be so annoying is bench points, right? So I'd rather have like a playing 4.0 defender for like a really crap team who's going to get 2 points, and I don't have to stress about me benching like a a clean sheet, right? So for my own sanity, it's kind of good not to have too many kind of bench points and whatnot. And I think we'll probably chat about it later, but I think there's some really good cheap options who are going to be playing, right, that I'll be putting in my team. And then I think it's good to have 1 or 2 cash cows, right? So I think it is good to not spread your money out across your team. It's good to have a few players that are more expensive than others, just because you can downgrade from them easily, right? So you can always move to one player in one move, or like a player in 2 moves at the most. So that's the general steer I get with kind of like price points. But I don't really, beyond that, I don't really pay too much attention. I'm looking at players, teams, fixtures, data points, all these other things. So yeah, that's the long answer. Short answer is I don't worry about it too much. I mean, is it on your mind? So you're looking at it and looking to feel like
and again, yeah, just so big part. So big, you're right. I take it seriously. Try and have fun with it, obviously. Otherwise, I wouldn't have played for 12 seasons. But I listen to podcasts. Big shout out to FPL Black Box, my number one choice. But that they talk about price points. So Mark, who runs that with, talks about it quite a lot. So in my battle to try and improve from 100,000 to top 10k, Mark is one of the best players as well. I'm always thinking, well, what's he doing? But I'll be honest, it's less fun. I enjoy not thinking about it, and this is why I do the Maverick picks like Sterling captain, because it's the enjoyment of the game. But I appreciate they're going to probably hinder my chances of top 10k eventually. So maybe
I mean, I've seen like people sometimes in the past, they've almost got, we don't have any players named, but you've got like these ghost players of price points. Like I've got a premium striker, a mid-price striker, and a budget striker, and then midfield premium, mid-price, 2 budget, whatnot. I think you just got to have the flexibility, really. I think we've got a budget. You got like that 100 million budget. You'll naturally kind of like find that blend that works for you. So I don't really pay attention to it. You just got to be flexible, kind of flexible to the players that have got the good fixtures, the good form, really. So I don't take too much notice, to be honest, mate. I adapt to whatever's right in front of me.
You've kind of touched on question 2 already, I think, because it was all about do you like to spread the funds? So looking at the bench and having somebody on the bench with some strength, or is it all about putting the money in the first 11? And from the sounds of it, for you, it is about the first 11.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely see the benefits of spreading the budget and having a stronger bench. But for me, it's too many decision points. I like limiting my decisions week on week. Do you know what I mean? So I don't have to overthink it, and I can just focus on what's that one optimal move that I can make. I think when you've got to bring in like benching dilemmas and whatnot, it just makes it more difficult for me. So I'm always a sucker for your 4.5 and your 4.0 defenders. I love a 4.0 defender. Like this year, at the moment, I've got one 4.5 and one 4.0. But when I did my first draft, I had two 4.0s. I think it's just like a good way to play that you've got somebody who can come on just in case. But yeah, they're never really going to play, so you don't have to have that decision. You can be smart about it, but I think it's overthinking. You can have like, I know, for example, if there's like you're filling your team with some of the big teams, if they're playing each other in game week 3 or game week 4, it'd be nice to have a bench option who can come in like no brainer and can help there. But yeah, I think it's just like a little bit too complex there. And yeah, I do like putting my budget in a couple of players. I think this year's harder to do because like in terms of premiums at the moment, I think really it's Haaland and then no one else. I mean, some people may be considering Salah still, but I think with the fixtures and I guess just a little bit of doubt around his positioning, he's not much of an equation at the moment. But yeah, Haaland's there, but there's a few other players in my draft at the moment who are pretty expensive, and I think it's just it's easy to downgrade them if need be, right? So I do like going heavy on the budget for the first 11, and then also heavy on certain players within the budget. Like I've never had a team where it's like a spread of 5.5 defenders and a spread of 7 million to 8 million like midfielders. Has always been quite heavy on certain players. But I think don't really matters too much that kind of bit, in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah. So when I do show my team and I've got Chilwell set on my bench, you'll be like, "What are you doing?" But yeah. So and another thing that I've been considering, mainly because of price changes, it's kind of been on my mind with also the I was talking about the price points there. So if I've got, I don't know, and then Kunku, I appreciate he might be injured, but if I've got an Kunku 7.5 million, I have zero money in the bank, and all of a sudden Darwin Núñez kicks off and he goes up by 0.1. Technically, I'm going to need 0.5 in my bank to be able to then go from Kunku to Núñez just because of how the prices work straight off the bat. So what are your thoughts in terms of leaving some money in the bank?
I think it's a really good point, and I think the last 3 seasons, I think I've left money in the bank, and partly that's been influenced by, like, as you suggested, you don't want to be priced out of like moves that you want to make quickly. So I think ideally you don't want to be forced to make a move in game week 2, right? You want to sit on it because having like those 2 free transfers, it's almost like a mini wild card. Like you can really restructure your team after a few more weeks of data, and that gives you more certainty as well. But if you know you're going to be priced out of a player because they're exactly the same price and your player's going down, they're going up, and it's a 0.2 swing, and you're never going to be able to get that player without major restructuring. That's difficult, right? It forces you into like those quick decisions that are non-ideal. But if you know you got that buffer of 0.5 million, you won't be as hasty to make those moves. So you can kind of just receive more data. So I think it's good it generally is a good practice. And I've done it probably like the last 3 years. My current draft, I have to say, has nothing in the bank. So what I would say is don't leave money in the bank whilst compromising your team. If you've got that perfect team, go for it. But if you can, don't feel obliged to spend all your money. I think is a general like statement I would say. And I think probably like the second draft I had 2 mil in the bank, and do you know what? I felt very comfortable about it. I felt cool about it. I didn't feel like a pressure where I need to spend the full amount. So yeah, don't leaving money in the bank is a good practice. Generally, pick the team you want. If it's full price, cool. If it's not, even better. So yeah, where are you at the moment? You are fully committed, or you?
Well, I had 0.5 in the bank up until Jesus' news, and now that he's out, I've pulled in. I had a 4.5 million defender. I've now got a 4.5 million striker, and I've ended up on Fernandes because it's always that Rashford or Fernandes. I'm sure we'll get into that conversation one day. But I was going Rashford. Now we've got both, but because he's that 0.5 more expensive than Jesus, the extra 0.5 I had in the bank's now gone. But there was nobody else. I wouldn't mind getting maybe Martinelli. I'm just not convinced on his 90 minutes is as assured as the likes of Fernandes with Trossard there. And
I think it's a fair comment. I mean, I might end up with some money in the bank. My latest draft, because of all the striker injuries. So I've got Watkins as my second striker at the moment. He cost 0.5 more than the striker I did have in. So may kind of revert that based on injury news, but I'm kind of fully committed at the moment. I'm not worried. I think I think it's a thing you can be quite chilled on, to be honest.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you about Watkins because we were chatting prior to this.
Yeah.
And you said something to me about fixtures, which we'll come on to because the next question's about fixtures. So it is all about when you're looking at your team. Are you looking at fixtures? Which of these is more important? How would you rank them? So fixtures, pre-season form, or the stats? And the problem with the stats, obviously, is last season's data. To begin with. But out of those three, what's your order? Now, you did say to me you were staying away from Villa because of the fixtures, and I had Watkins and I panicked, and then you've just told me you've got Watkins.
I think Watkins is a different story. Watkins is like the last man standing, who's like a decent striker. Do you know what I mean? So and Villa is still
he can score against anybody. Watkins. I think he's got Liverpool game week 4. He always scores at Anfield.
No, exactly. I stand by it. I think they got pretty shit fixtures, but I think because he's the last man standing in terms of those viable second strikers. I think I'm on him at the moment. I mean, he's got Newcastle away to start with, Everton home. That's right. Burnley away is going to be tough. I think. Normally a team who dominates the Championship and comes up, they start okay. I don't think they'll be leaking goals. Liverpool away, that could be difficult. Palace have a good defense. Chelsea away. There's a lot of away games there, right? So there's some decent teams. So I stand by it. Those are tough fixtures, but you can nick a goal for sure. But it's more out of necessity of lack of other options. Question was what fixtures versus form versus
last season stats. But you're right with Villa. I've just checked, like on the attacking fixtures list over those first 6 games, the 14th. So. They are tough fixtures for him to score in, but I get your points. Nobody else is in that price bracket. It's actually is left standing. So I get that.
I mean,
so it is.
Yeah. I'd take a Chelsea striker or Jesus if he was fit, like over him for sure. But these last man standing. But I think probably these 3 things are like really good things to look at because I think they're probably the first things I would look at when I'm picking my week 1 team. And like fixtures are king for sure. So the first thing I look at is really been driving my drafts and my selection on the moment is fixtures. And all the time in my game week 1 team, my team will be really lopsided, right? 3 or 4 teams will dominate it, and it will just be there'll be no spread and balance. It'll be going all in on certain teams. So first thing I look at is who's got the best fixtures, right? That's the first thing that I look at, and probably the window I'm looking at is first 5 game weeks, because I think within that time you can adapt if things aren't going your way, and you've always got the wild card, the first half of the season wild card that you can get yourself out of trouble. So I'm looking at real short-term bias and look at the fixtures, and I look at who are the good teams who've got the good fixtures, right? So this year I'm looking at Man City, obviously. Chelsea's a bit more of an unknown, but they're looking okay, and there's some good players there. Arsenal are looking good. Brighton are looking good. United to a lesser extent. So some good teams here who've done well last year that have got good fixtures. So that's what I'm basing my fundamentals of my team around. When it comes to form and stats, they're both influencing kind of factors, but I don't really over-engineer it, right? So when it comes to form, I kind of ignore the final table, from last year. I kind of more think of who was doing well in the second half of the season, right? And who, because first half is distant memory, don't really matter. So some of the teams that I was keeping an eye on because I thought they're on a good trajectory were Villa, for example. Right? I think they were top 4 based on form second half of the year. Hope no one checks and validates it. I think that was the case, yeah. So
something about from when Emery came in, they were definitely top 4.
Yeah, they smashed it. So I was looking out for I do think there is a fact if you're finishing a season strong, that can kind of like, as long as you have that continuity, you don't change manager, you got a consistent team and like setup, you can continue that. So I was looking out for teams like Newcastle and Villa, but unfortunately they don't have good fixtures, so those fixtures trump their form. Pre-season form, I couldn't care less. Like for me, pre-season form is all about, and games is all about who's starting, right? Who's getting the minutes? What does the formation look like? And is there any surprises there? So it's suddenly like another goalkeeper starting all the games, then that's like a red flag. Do you know what I mean? But beyond that, I don't put a great deal of weight on pre-season form. Now, when it comes to stat, more just when I'm looking at, I've identified the teams I want to target, then it's looking at the players, right? So maybe controversial opinion, yeah, but like a team that have got good fixtures, they think they did all right in the second half of last season, Brighton, yeah. So that's how it looks like an individual player stats. So I know he's like a bit of a poster child. Like he performed well in some big games and like put some well-known players on their ass. But like Matoma, yeah, versus someone like Solly March. Like if I was going down for a Brighton midfielder, I'd look at pure stats. I wouldn't look at like goals and assists, even though March did very good on that. I'd probably be favouring March just based on expected goals, expected assists, and whatnot. So like the stats kind of more comes in when I'm picking up those individual players, and it's all driven around by expected goals and like things that feed into that, really. So yeah, but yeah, fixtures first and foremost, and they help me identify the teams. Then it's stats on individual players, and then form, yeah, to a lesser extent. But preseason form, I couldn't care less about. I mean, it don't mean nothing. I think there's been evidence where there's like teams that have like smashed out preseason, and then that's like the worst seasons ever, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And
so yeah,
player-wise,
that's where my head is at. I mean, what are you favouring? Is it like big fixtures, man?
I'm all fixtures pretty much.
Yeah.
Again, I've been burnt with the last season. Leon Bailey absolutely smashing it in pre-season. Everybody jumps on him and he does absolutely nothing in the league until a week you sell him, and then I think he bagged. But yeah, I've been burned too much by pre-season form. So I think you're right. Looking at to see whether Areola is going to play for West Ham. I mean, how much has he played during pre-season? So again, I use it for that. But then I say that I have Watkins as well at the minute. I'm a big fan of Watkins, but I was looking at pre-season and Diaby has got 2 and 2, and he looks to be playing kind of the top of this 4-4-2, but he's classed as a midfielder. So part of me was going for him, but then that's 2 fundamental rules for me that I go against there. Number 1, forget pre-season, and number 2, don't get a player that's never played in the Premier League until you see how they.
I think I think you want to go, well, in my opinion anyway, you want to go with those surefire things, right? And some people come in as absolute no-brainers, like Haaland last year, right? Obviously, it's like an exceptional player and for an exceptional team, and everyone could see that. But more often than not, like if there's a player, a new team, and let alone new to the Premier, like you just got to be cautious to go with those. There's so many options, right? There's so many players that you know exactly how they're going to play and what their team's all about. I don't think you can take. You don't need to take those risks right now. Just wait and see.
Yeah, it's an interesting one when you were talking about the back end of last season, because I mentioned before, like a headache for me has been. So I've got Fernandez now. I've got both Fernandez and Rashford, but I'll probably only start with one because I want 3 based on the fixtures, as I say that, which is what I go for. I either want 3 Arsenal players and 2 of them being attackers, or I want somebody with Haaland. So I'll probably forfeit one of Rashford or Fernandez to get there. But based on last season's stats, as much as Rashford outscored Bruno for the last 6 game weeks, Bruno actually had the better expected points. So if you're looking at the back end of the season, is he potentially the way to go because he's actually 0.5 cheaper? Or do you worry maybe Mount coming in is gonna cause him a problem from a positional point of view?
I think he had an exceptional season. Like, to be fair, and like he was the first person I looked at. If you look at like his goals and assists since he's joined United, they're exceptional every single year. There was a little bit of a drop off last season in the first half because they had Ronaldo, right? And like his role was fundamentally different in the team, and he was like off pens and all that kind of stuff. Second half of the season, he smashed it again, and he underperformed his stats, which I like because that means his price is a little bit lower. But I think he was probably statistically like one of, if not the best player in the league for the second half of the season. And like I screwed up last year. I had a good finish, but I think I could have got into the top 5K if I kept Fernandez at the right time. So I don't want to bet against him. I think he was like the first, looking at United's fixtures, he was and the price point. He was the first person on my team sheet. He's been a lock in from day one for me.
So you clearly you're on that side of the argument.
I've got Rashford as well, but like I would take Bruno over him. Like he's yes, Mount is coming, but you know his role in the team. He's going to play every single game. We know the direction that United are going. Like they've got the same manager, they're building a team. We loosely know the formations they're going to play, all that kind of stuff. You've got a player who's scored and assisted consistently for like 3.5 years. I think it's all those things are big tick boxes, right?
Yeah, no, I get that. And just to kind of link back to the Matoma March argument. So by the way, I'm going to make the point that I'm not just going to do what you tell me to do, because then we'll just have the same team, and that's no fun. But this is the why having your guidance is great for me, because I have got Matoma. Now I'm just looking at the stats from last season. Now they both played 33 games. They both scored 7 goals. Yeah. From an assist point of view, March got 1 more, but the expected FPL point of view, Matoma 138, March 159. So he was expected to get an extra 21 points last season, and they're both the same price. Now, to me, that screams March is the obvious pick. Yeah, I've got Matoma.
It's because he's a better player, and he's more pleasing on the eye, right? So he's a better player. I don't think anyone can deny. But you're not getting points for dribbles and players beat him, right? You're getting players just like that end output. And what those stats are saying is that March is getting in those areas and making those interventions that are going to lead to goals and points. And like he was unlucky, March. I mean, it was quite infamous, right, where he had a goal disallowed, I think, and I think actually that influenced who won FPL overall. Like the guy who came second as Captain March when he didn't have his goal there.
It was given as a Jack Harrison own goal, and I know because I had March as captain because it was a double game week.
I think I might have had him on captain as well. Actually, I think he got points in the other game, but super unlucky there. But I think back to that. I think Mitoma is a better player. March probably better for FPL if you're just looking at it in pure output terms. And I'd always be led by those stats. And I think unless you think someone's an exceptional finisher, everyone's going to trend towards that baseline of meeting their expected goals over the medium term. I think Mitoma had that really hot streak, I don't know. It must have been like Feb or March time, right? And he was scoring great goals, like absolute worldies every game week. You knew he was going to. He didn't score that much for the rest of the season because he was always going to reverse to the mean. Like he's never going to beat 5 players and then top corner from 30 yards every single game. And I think some people were thinking, yeah, he's just a better finisher. But it's like the trajectory that he was on was better than peak Messi in terms of the finishing. That's not going to happen, right? So, yeah, I'd trend on March over Matoma. Controversial decision, but if I was looking at pure data, yeah, I'd be going on that, and that's why I generally use to make those 50-50 decisions on players.
Yeah, so if they've got the fixture, then use the stats to be like, well, which of the players in that team do you want? That makes sense. I know we said we'd do about 20 minutes, and we're getting on for half an hour. So the last question, I'll just recap before I ask you it.
Yeah.
So price points, ignore to a degree. Spread in the funds, so build the 11. Very much build the 11. Mainly so you don't have the headache of who you bench. You're kind of forced. Yeah. And then leaving money in the bank is a good idea, but not to the detriment of your starting 11. And then basically go on fixtures. Fixtures number 1, probably from the sounds of that, stats number 2, and you're going to use pre-season as a way of saying who's actually going to be in the starting 11 come game week 1.
No, spot on, mate. I think yeah, with the bench stuff, I don't think I'm smart enough to to make those decisions every week. So it just makes it simpler. Yeah, with the fixtures, I think probably most people's teams are looking structurally kind of similar, right? Because your team will be dominated by people from Arsenal, maybe a bit of Man City, maybe a bit of Chelsea, maybe a bit of Brighton players. That's cool, and that's okay. You don't have to force it to be different, but yeah, you got to be led by those fixtures. And there's some teams that are really good that just have hard fixtures: Liverpool, Newcastle, Villa, right? So yeah, they're
Yeah, the
king. They're
Newcastle
king.
is interesting because the thing I hate doing, but I do it every season, is looking at percentage owned. And
Yeah.
Trippier is like one of the most owned defenders. I'm looking at it thinking of people that have bought him, looked at their fixtures. It seems like until about game week 6, they'll find it hard to come by a clean sheet. So I don't know. So yeah, I don't know whether you've seen that yourself. He's the
Um,
second most owned defender after Estupiñán.
no, it's probably because he was top. Was he top scoring last year? He must have been there or thereabouts. But he
Yeah,
smashed
I
it,
think.
didn't
I mean,
he? Yeah.
I think it was something stupid. I mean, not exactly, but about 10 or 11 games in a row where we got bonus points as well. It was crazy.
But yeah, he's a hell of a player, and he'll score well, no doubt. But probably not for that price point. And I'm happy to make that bet. That's actually, I don't look at ownership, but hearing that stat there, that's cool. That's a bet I'm willing to make, right? That's it. So yeah,
Well, if you
I'm
finish
happy
in
with that.
top 1,000, or that's your aim, whereas I'm a top 100,000. Well, top 10,000 now. Thank you, this podcast. But you're a top 1,000. Clearly, you win more of the bets than you lose. So carry on. I suppose that the last question. So in terms of building, we might have touched on some of this already, but in terms
Yeah,
of
yeah.
building your first game week team,
hmm
top three bits of advice. What are your top 3 points?
Um, I've got a short memory. I'll start with the point we just made actually. So don't look at ownership.
Okay.
It's a really good point. And this goes. I never look at it, right? So of course you can see it. It'd be great if someone's got a plug-in that you can put into FPL that just hides ownership, because I think that'll help me and probably like lots of other people. But ownership is bad because like sometimes people select players out of fear. I'm going to select this player because I'm worried what's going to happen. But
Yeah,
also
no.
there's the
I'm
reverse as
currently,
well.
I've got, yeah. I've
The,
got that fear
the
for
reverse
Trent.
is the reverse as well. It goes as well. And I don't know the guy, but I've listened to his pods and whatnot. So you kind of mentioned kind of like Mark from Scouts, a really good player. But I think he does this, and a few other like kind of well-known and good players do this. They pick players. They ignore players because they're highly owned and just pick random players with low ownership because they think they can outsmart the means. So don't force it.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to have differentials for the sake of it. Pick the players that are the best players that are going to score the most points. And like if you do that consistently, even if your team is the template, then over time you should get a good solid rank. I think lots of people look at ownership and just like force it. They either do it, follow it because they're afraid, or they try and force low ownership players because they want to be different.
It stung
Ignore it.
Mark last year because he started, instead of with Salah and Haaland, he started with Kane and Son. And although they scored 4, I think Son got an assist and Kane did nothing. So yeah, he regretted it. So yeah, there you go. Good point made.
There's loads of people that just do it, and not at the moment, but like in the season, I'm pretty active on Twitter, and there's always people being quite disparaging of the template, and I hate the template. I want to go against it, and like it is what it is, really. Like, why do you want to get a low own percentage own player who's crap? Like, it's mad. So like, yeah, ignore ownership for both ends of the spectrum. Like, don't do it for
Yeah.
force it because of fear, but also don't force yourself to be different. So I think that's number one. Number two is we touched on it anyway, mate. Like fixture, go with the teams that are good teams with good fixtures over like a roughly 5 game week window. You won't do a lot wrong there. And then, a final one. I reckon it's I'm going to do two because I can't make my mind up of what's better. So like, sorry mate, for not
I'll
listening.
let you have a top four hint. That's fine. Top four.
So I think one would be we've touched on it, but go with like players who are just surefire things, right? They're just like known entities. They're going to start every game. You know where they're going to play in their team. They're settled in that. Like they've consistently scored in the Premier League before and whatnot. You can have a few exceptions, but like that's generally the rule of thumb, right? So there's loads of examples of kind of those decisions. Like this year, when you look at players, like it's why we're talking about Watkins, right? He's like where he's going to play every game for Villa. He's on pens. He's a good player, right? So like tick tick tick. So that's number 3. And then the fourth one is so don't pre-plan a move in game week 2 and try and avoid a move in game week 2, because game week 1 is always quite random, right? Everyone's come back from pre-season. It can be all over the place, right? You want to as much info as possible when making your decisions, right? And that extra game week makes all the difference. And having 2 free transfers, you can restructure your team, right? If Haaland gets injured, you can downgrade him to anyone you want and then bring in Salah, right? If you wanted to. If whatever Chelsea look incredible, you can have those 2 free transfers to bring in 2 players. Like, do you know what I mean? So I think having that flexibility, like ignoring game week 2, having a team who you're really happy with game week 1 and game week 2, and then rolling the transfers, so you have 2 in game week 3. I think this is really big for me. So yeah, that's
Glad you said that last one.
That's number 4.
Glad you've said it, because I've never done it. So last season it hurt me because I started the season like I think a lot of people did. Season game 1, I think Tottenham had Southampton at home. City were away at West Ham. So I did the classic. I'll have Kane week 1, and then week 2 I'll go straight to Haaland. Haaland bagged a brace game week 1. Kane did absolutely nothing. So I think this season my plan, so I'm glad you've said it, is to try and get into game week 3 without doing. Go to game week 2 without a transfer, save it for game week 3. So I'm glad I'm learning.
No, I think like it's interesting last year because like I could see the appeal of that Kane move, right? He's like fantastic striker, right? And Spurs, a good team against like Southampton. I could see the merit in the move. The reason why I didn't do it, so I started with Haaland, was I don't want to force myself into a move the next game week. Do you know what I mean? Like there's so many things that can happen. Players can get injured, all sorts, right? So don't have those pre-planned moves like really early. Like I think try and say just have a team that you're really confident with for the first 2 weeks, and then you can take it from there. Really, taking hits straight and move straight away, I think is just a bad recipe. Do you know what I mean? I think it's a bad plan.
A good shout, because I think a lot of people will be thinking about that Bournemouth game for Liverpool. So the advice is don't. If you
want them, bring them in for game week 1. Like I think if you like, I mean, in my opinion. Watch me have an awful start now, but
I think so.
That's the way forward, mate.
Yeah, as soon as you started to be somebody's mentor, you start plummeting. so hopefully you'll pull my rank up as opposed to me pulling your rank down. Hopefully that's the way this works. But no, thank you for joining us, Matt. I appreciate you're going to be hopefully with me for the next 38 weeks. We're going to speak mainly about your team. I will speak a little bit about mine as well and recap our game weeks. But I think hopefully we'll do another episode before the deadline next Friday, and we'll touch on. Let's see if you practice what you preach. Let's have a look at your team reveal. I'll let you know what I'm about and who I've got in, and then just to prepare yourself for this one, I'll be talking about Haaland. I'll be talking about Salah. I'll be talking about Trent, who and why. So have a little think about that one, and then as I say, the big old team reveal. But appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us. Sorry that I've kept you for 40 minutes, but it was good chat. So thank you.
No worries, mate. You take care.
And yourself, and to everybody that's listening, thank you for your time as well. We'll hopefully be back next week before the deadline to look at, as I say, Matt's team, and we'll see you all then. Thanks for listening.